Hello there, AP Government. This video is going to serve as a kind of a review of how to write the concept application FRQ, one of the two that you're going to be writing on the modified exam this year. Before we get into that, though, I want to just again remind you of what this year's exam is going to look like. You're all going to be taking it on Monday, May 11th at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. That's not negotiable. Everybody must be logged in, ready to go by 4 p.m. I'm sure you're going to get a lot more detail on how to do this through emails from the College Board. Make sure you're checking those emails and reading them and taking care of any technical difficulties you might be having at home that could prevent you from doing this. So I'm now starting to give you a lot of assignments through AP Classroom because I feel like that's probably similar format or process to how the College Board is going to deliver the exam to you. So if everything's working well with AP Classroom, I'd like to think we're in good shape. If not, you may need to get in touch with some of the tech people at school to get that worked out. Make sure that you have reminders set for yourself, written and in your phone. Tell your parents, tell your friends. 4 p.m. Monday, May 11th, you're ready to go. Make sure you have a place in your house that is quiet, where you can be behind a locked door, no one's going to interrupt, you have good lighting, you have space, all those types of things that you're going to need to do this. Start planning for that now. We are less than a month away. Actually, we're less than 4 weeks away from this test, so it's coming soon. All right. As you can see on the screen, you're going to answer 2 FRQ questions. The first one is going to be that argument essay type. That was that fourth and final type that we were just learning. They've modified that a bit, I think simplified it, which is why they're only giving you 25 minutes to write it. I'm going to create another video walking you again through how to write those, especially with the changes they've made to it. 25 minutes to read and respond. I'm assuming you're all going to type your response into the whatever template or whatever they're giving you. Again, I think it's going to probably be a lot like AP Classroom. And then they're going to give you 5 minutes to upload that response. So I doubt it'll take that long, but we'll kind of look at that as a little bit of a break or a breather. Then you're going to start the second question. This is going to be the concept application type. That's probably the most basic type of the first 3 we learned. You'll have 15 minutes for that response, and then another 5 minutes to upload, and then you're done. Okay. You can see that that's the order in which you'll write them. So I am going to reintroduce you to the concept application type, the second type first, but that's okay. Just know that that'll be the second one you write. And you can see here on the screen the way they're weighting these 2 essays. So they're almost equal. There's a lot more points possible in the first question, the argument essay. I believe that's out of 7, whereas the concept application is only out of 3. But with that concept application question being worth 40% of your exam score, that means all 3 of those points are vital. I don't want to put extra pressure on you, but I am telling you that we need to get all 3 of those points. We don't have a lot of room for error on that one. Okay. The good news is they really haven't changed or modified that type of question at all. It's going to be the same 3 parts, 3 points. Going to look a lot like many that you've already done this year. So I would also recommend that at this point you find and set aside all FRQs of these 2 types. I know we only saw 1 of the argument essay, so we'll definitely do more on those, but find all the concept application FRQs that you've written, that I gave you as samples, and have them ready and start to go through them again, reading especially either my feedback on what you wrote or the sample essays and how those responses were crafted. I will try to do this very soon. I'll go through and dig up any that I have and put them in Google Classroom for you to either print or to look through online. Okay, we really need to, let's be honest here. This exam got really simplified. While we don't know exactly what the content will be, we know what it can be and what it can't be, and we're gonna start doing a lot of review of old content. But in terms of what you're being asked to do, this is very straightforward. So let's really focus on how to write these two types of essays so that we can put faith in our knowledge. Because as I've told you all year, you are going to know your stuff for this exam. The difference between a 5 and a 4, or a 4 and a 3, or a 3 and a 1, nobody gets ones. You better not get a 1. But usually the difference isn't what you know, it's your ability to show what you know. And that often means in the FRQs, can you write it? So we really need to focus in on the process of writing these now. Take the practice I'm going to give you very seriously. Work hard to do your best. Don't be lazy. I would have said this to you during the final exam and many, many more times, that to sit there twiddling your thumbs during the exam, to finish early and to be like, I'm done. I'm not going to proofread. I'm not going to look at this again. I'm not going to add a couple more sentences that might help develop my response. To me, that's such a waste of time. You have nowhere to go. Why would you do that? This is your one shot. Well, that is a tough thing to tell students near the end of a 3-hour exam when they're, pretty exhausted and they're like, I don't want to even think about government anymore. But now we're talking about a 40-minute exam. There is no excuse that we're not going to utilize every second we're given, and we're going to write and keep writing. Now, we're going to try to write clearly and stay focused on what the question's asking us. So sometimes you don't have to write a lot during those points, but we're going to leave nothing to chance. We're going to write thorough responses. You've heard me say 1,000 times, well, maybe that's exaggerating, but many times you've heard me say, pretend like you're writing to that 3-year-old. Mine is Timmy. He doesn't understand any of this. Spell it out for him. Short, choppy, simple sentences that lay out a process, or that explain step by step, or that describe something thoroughly. And we try to use government vocabulary when we write. We don't say, well, Congress could do something. No, Congress could pass a law. The president can issue an executive order. The court, using its power of judicial review, can declare an act unconstitutional. Use those government vocabulary terms, and all will be well. All right, so this was just meant to be a little overview of what the exam is going to look like. Like I said, this video is primarily going to focus on how to write the concept application type. So what I'm going to do to help you with this is I'm going to show you the first assigned concept application FRQ. So you're finding this video as part of an assignment to go into AP Classroom and write a response to one of these types of FRQs. This should be the one that I'm assigning you. And you're going to type your response right here in this box. Again, part of the reason why I want to use these right now is because I believe that it is probably a lot like what the exam is going to look like. Now, I don't know that for sure, but my assumption is they're going to follow this format that they've introduced this year, or something quite close to it. Okay, so concept application, you'll recall, provides you with a real life scenario, something that actually happened in American government. And from all the ones I've seen so far, it tends to be something recent. So it usually looks like an excerpt from a news article, and they want you to apply what you know about government to this scenario. My advice would be, as always, to start by looking at the questions, parts A, B, and C. See what concepts, what ideas in government this question is really all about. Before you get into reading the scenario, get a feel for what have I learned that is being tested here. So I chose this question in part because it reviews something we just learned, one of our kind of our remote learning topics on the bureaucracy. So as we read part A, it says, referencing the scenario, describe the function being carried out by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. So you want to maybe underline function. What is the FCC doing? What very well known, think of it like vocabulary or a concept we've learned, is the FCC engaging in this question? And then always make note of the verb in each part. So here in part A, the verb is describe. Circle that line. If you're taking this exam online, you might not be able to do that. But, in your mind, say, okay, I have to describe this. I will try to provide you, or I think I already have, maybe a gold sheet that I had given you, what these different verbs mean. Let's review this one right now. Describe is not the same as identify. Okay, identify just means what is it, what's it called, what is its name? Name the function. When it says describe, yes, you want to name it. If it has a common name, you certainly want to give it, but then you need to elaborate just a bit. You need to kind of define what that function is or discuss what that is, okay? Now, remember, with concept application, they often say, in the context of the scenario or referencing the scenario. So as you describe this function that the FCC or maybe other bureaucratic agencies might carry out, connect it back to this scenario, relate some of the details of this scenario to it. Now that could probably be done in 2 or 3 sentences. This shouldn't take you very long. Let's kind of get a sense of pace here. You have 15 minutes to read, and read carefully. Don't be in a rush. Don't feel like, oh, I got to start writing, so I'm going to skim this real fast and get to my response. No, of 15 minutes, I think spending 2 or even 3 really reading and thinking about this, and there's nothing to stop you from having paper with you, right in front of you when you take the exam and making little notes. Now they did tell you, or I think you've read that you can reference notes and books and so on. Be careful. 15 minutes isn't a lot of time. You cannot spend a lot of that time looking things up. I think you really need to rely on what you know. Now, if your binder is well organized and you know the units of study and you know where to find things, you should be able to find your notes on the bureaucracy rather quickly. You don't have a lot of time to look at them, but if in desperation you needed to see, or you're like, oh, I want to make sure I describe that correctly, that is possible, but be careful. That clock is ticking. My assumption is you're going to have a timer in your face as you write. So don't become dependent on your notes. Trust what you know. They're not scoring it any harder because they know you're at home and you might be referencing notes. They're going to accept the same responses that they would have if you were taking this exam in room 127 or 8 at the high school. So rely on what you know, but I think this is also a good time to go through and get your binder organized. It should have been all year, and I know many of you did, but some of you, this is not your strength. Find a friend, get a parent, get your binder organized just in case, if for no other reason than as part of your review to get ready for this exam. Okay, that was a little bit of a digression, but that's what we want to do in part A. All right, part B. Explain how interest groups can affect the process described in part A. So now they're bringing in interest groups. What would be their role in this? So you have to first know what the process is. What is it that the FCC is doing in part A? What is that function? How might an interest group affect this process? Now here you might want to think, I'll give you a little hint, you might want to think back to that iron triangle we just learned. Not all of it. You don't want to get into the whole iron triangle, but The iron triangle was a way of introducing the interaction between interest groups and the bureaucracy, and then Congress as well. And then if you're skimming ahead, you'll see that Congress comes up in Part C. So that would be a good thing to review as you prepare to write this question. But what is the verb? The verb is to explain how. Remember, this is the one, whenever it says explain, this is the verb that usually requires the most writing. We are describing or explaining a process. We are showing little Timmy how this works. Short, simple sentences, but many of them. So you might want to start by saying, what interest groups would do, how that would affect the bureaucracy and what the bureaucracy is doing. Each of those things might take a few sentences. Be thorough. Again, use vocabulary. If you feel like there's something more you can say, add it in. Try not to lose focus. Don't start introducing completely different ideas that are unrelated. This is not a show everything you know, but as you explain how interest groups would affect what the FCC is doing in Part A, this function of the FCC, be very thorough in explaining that. Okay. Remember, always in context of the scenario. So don't just say how interest groups might affect this process generically. How might they affect this process as it's being carried out by the FCC in Part A? Remember, one of the key things to a concept application FRQ is that you show that you know how government works, but you show that in the context of this very specific scenario they're giving you. Okay, so you're not talking about government generically. You're showing what you know about government, but tying it, intertwining it within this given scenario. Okay, then finally, Part C says, December 2017, the FCC created the rule ending net neutrality. Now, until you read the passage, you may not fully grasp what that means, net neutrality, but they created a rule that ended it. Now explain how Congress could respond to this decision made by the FCC if it doesn't like it. So here again, we get into that idea of congressional oversight of the bureaucracy. And again, the kind of the iron triangle. Think about what Congress's main functions are. And now explain how they would use that function if they didn't like what the FCC just did, and what would be the effect. Okay, so again, just like in Part B, we have to explain how. We have to be rather thorough, spell this out step by step, and keep focused on the scenario. Now, at this point, if you feel you understand the question and you think you get the government concept, then you would go ahead and read the scenario very carefully. Now, I'm going to point something out with this one. I found this a little bit odd. I'm guessing I've seen it before in some of these, but as you read the scenario, you'll see that in the second paragraph, they seemingly include information that is for the most part irrelevant to answering this question. Maybe not everything in there, but it strikes me as it's almost meant to be a distraction to you. Like, they took this from probably a newspaper article, and that was part of the newspaper article, so they included it. But I really don't see how all of it is relevant to answering the question. So beware of that. I've seen this a little, like I said, a little bit before, but maybe not to this extent. I think what they're attempting to do here, though, is see if, just like a multiple choice question, only one of the four choices is correct. The other three are meant to distract you and confuse you. And this is how we help on a test like this figure out who knows their stuff and who doesn't. So be aware of that. Don't be misled. Don't think that you have to somehow incorporate that information in answering the question if you know that it doesn't. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that none of it matters. I just want you to be aware that there might be a little distractor in there. Okay. All right. I hope this helps. Make sure you follow my directions and get this written and submitted on time. If you have any trouble with, accessing this through AP Classroom, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to help you there. Again, as I said at the beginning, this is one of the types of FRQs you're going to have to write. Take this very seriously. Focus on not so much getting it done or doing it in a way that is going to guarantee you a perfect grade. Focus on how do I do this? The way grades are set up this quarter, I mean, really, so much of your grade is a gimme. It's hard this quarter because of the circumstances we're in to really assess you in a way that's going to bring down your grade too much. This if you haven't figured this out by now, this should be the best grade you receive all year this quarter. So you have the luxury, I guess, of really when you write these FRQs for practice here to just see what you can do. Try your best. Don't. I guess what I'm saying is don't cheat to write this better than you can on the exam. Take this as a legitimate opportunity to improve your writing so that on that exam day, you can do the very best you can. Okay, I want to help you with these. I want to do whatever I can to make sure that you are ready for that exam. That's been my goal all year. So good luck with this one, and we'll be in touch again soon.